Welcome everybody to True Real Estate Horror Stories. My name is Mike McNamara. I'm your host. Thank you for joining us. And I have the pleasure to be here with Christina Chipman.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell our guests about yourself.
Okay, so as you mentioned, my name is Christina Chipman. Some of you out there might know me by Chippy.
Okay.
I currently am the 2023 Nevada Realtor Leadership Academy trustee. Been in the business about 8 years right now, working out of Urban Nest Realty.
Okay.
Super involved in the association, past board of director on LVR, past president of Women's Council, and I don't know, just doing all the things.
I love it. What is your, how much production do you do?
So 2022 was less than 2021.
Okay.
But I typically average about 55 to 60 transactions as a solo agent.
Awesome. So then you come across a lot of crazy deals.
I do.
Good, good.
Yes.
So
crazy clients, crazy deals.
yes, the whole works, right? So what do you want to start with?
Okay, so I'll tell you just a little story, kind of a horror story. I mean, it all ended out well, which is always the goal, right?
Yeah.
To get to the ending successfully. But I have a lot of clients who are investors, and I want to say this was 2 years ago, 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So we were right in the heat of COVID.
Okay.
I had an investor call me. His tenants were going to be moving out of the property. The lease was up, and he wanted to sell. He wanted to get the property on the market sooner than later. We had talked about the different pros and cons about listing it while the tenant was still there versus waiting until the tenant had packed up and moved out.
Mm-hmm.
The tenant at the time of the original meeting was cooperative. I went to the property with the homeowner and spoke with the tenant myself. We got photography done. We had set up an appropriate showing schedule,
Right.
And all seemed to be working
Everything
well.
that you're supposed to do when you're dealing with a
did all the
tenant.
things. The tenant's like, yep, no problem. We're going to pack up
Right.
and move out. We understand, and all is well.
What was the price point of the property? Do you remember?
This was, I want to say low threes, 325 maybe.
Okay.
So it was, entry level-ish.
Do you know if, because it was during COVID, do you know if it had the rental rules that were in place where you couldn't evict a tenant? Do you remember?
God, I'm trying to remember the year. I feel like, unless I'm crazy and it wasn't 2020 and it was 2019, which could have been it. Because I do remember we did end up having to serve them with an eviction.
Gotcha.
So maybe it was before COVID where we couldn't.
Gotcha.
Maybe that would have been
Yeah.
that would have been a real horror story, because
Right,
then we wouldn't have
right,
been able to get them out.
right.
So yeah, maybe my timeline is off. 2019. Anyway, so we met with the tenant. She was, again, sweet, cooperative, sellers excited, getting the house on the market and selling off. So we get the house on the market, we do showings, we get offers, we go into contract with a buyer. The buyer, who was represented, of course, by a different agent, our cooperating agent, the buyer was moving here from, I want to say it was the Seattle area.
Okay.
And she was a teacher and going to be coming, this was in August timeframe, so she was coming here to start her new career in Las Vegas. And of course, lo and behold, the tenant's supposed to be out like this week, and the tenant's not out yet.
So did the tenant let you do inspections and go through that whole process?
We went through the whole process,
Okay.
and they kept saying, yes, we're going to be out. Yes, we're going to be out. Yes, we're going to be out.
Okay.
I think what happened is, and I've seen this multiple times, is when the reality hits and the tenants
They
are
have to
out looking
find
for a new
Yeah.
place to live, and they're seeing maybe that they were getting a really great deal on their rent, and the new rents are much higher than they were expected. They have to come up with all these deposits and things, that it just became a lot harder than they had anticipated.
Yeah.
So, and instead of being honest with us and talking to us and helping us find solutions,
Right.
they pretty much just at the end decided to ghost us.
Gotcha.
And didn't leave.
Do you help tenants move when you're dealing with? Because I personally don't. I mean, I'll direct them to an agent that can help them to move, but I don't actually.
I'm
with
going to
that
be
process.
honest. I've done a little of all of it.
Okay,
I have
good.
been that agent at times that I've been at the house loading up boxes myself, throwing them in the back of my car.
I've done that. Yes.
So it depends.
Okay.
My goal is to get the deal done. So whatever that takes, sometimes that means I'm in there scrubbing toilets myself, or if that's what it takes. So
Gotcha.
yes, I would
Cool.
say yes, I have.
Cool.
Anyways, in this situation, so now all of a sudden the tenant ghosts. She says she's not moving out. She pulls all these different excuses of why she can't move. She's handicapped. She has this disability, and now she's filing, with the I think that the homeowner, I had advised him, I'm like, well, these are our options. We're in contract. We're supposed to be closing. Of course, I'm letting the buyer and the buyer's agent know. They're freaking out because
they're moving.
they're in the,
with
yeah,
a
they
truck
have
load
a
of-
U-Haul and they're like en route to
Yeah.
Las Vegas with no home to come to. So we ended up postponing closing. We all agreed, well, obviously we need to wait until the tenants are out. The buyers didn't want to assume that problem, which I do not blame them.
Agree.
I advised my seller, what his options were, that, if it were my choice, I would go the legal route and have them formally served by an eviction service company. What we had found is, of course, the notifications and the agreement between the tenant and the property owner weren't really valid when it comes to,
In regards to the lease agreement?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the lease agreement's in place, and the seller and the tenant have agreed that they're moving out.
Gotcha.
But if they decide not to move out, you don't just get to go and say, get out of the house anyway. You still have to
Go through
file the
right.
eviction and go through the appropriate courses to get
Right.
to get the tenant out. So I had made he was like, well, now they're saying they just need a couple more weeks, and if we could just give them more time. My advice was, we'll talk to a servicing company, but I would make it official. I would still pay the money, have them served, so that at least your 30-day timer is starting, and you're not
Right.
waiting for 2 or 3 more weeks to pass and then them do the exact
Well,
same
and
thing.
also you're kind of giving the buyer who's purchasing the property a little bit more peace of mind that
Yeah.
you're doing some things to make this thing
Right,
happen.
we're not just
Right.
waiting for them to do the right thing, because
Right.
we have clearly seen that they might
Yeah.
not do the right
Yeah.
thing. At the end of the day, it actually took, it was a lot of back and forth. It got a little nasty. There were times where, we would have Zoom phone calls with the buyer, the buyer's agent, myself, and the seller.
Which is unusual, by the way. Zoom calls with all parties together is unusual.
It was actually, it's really funny. My client at the time, his name is Nate. He's still a client of mine, I will say. But it was when we got off the phone, he was like, "Damn, Christina, you're like a shark. You should be an attorney," because they're the buyers, and I get it. The buyers were in a difficult position. They're at this point, they had already had a truck and they were in Las Vegas, and they had all of their belongings in a vehicle and nowhere to live. We ended up coming to an agreement with them to help subsidize their temporary housing. I think they stayed in a hotel for a while. I was telling you earlier a little bit about the story, and I'm not saying that I would advise anybody else to do this, so take this with
a little bit of high liability, but it's okay.
At the time, I owned a condo. It was a rental property as well, and the garage at the condo was empty because we didn't find an occupant for the condo yet. So although they couldn't move into the condo because it was under a remodel project, but I had an empty garage, and I invited the buyer's agent and the buyers to move all of their belongings out of the U-Haul and put it in my empty garage, again, as a kind of peace offering. Like, we're trying to help. Let's hold this deal together. We did end up getting the deal closed. I think it took maybe 45 days after our original closing date.
So a decent amount of time.
Yeah. Oh, it took some time. So they were living in, in a hotel, I think it was. The buyers and the buyer's agent, I get it. I probably would have done the same thing. They tried to get forceful. They wanted us to pay all of their additional expenses. And, we pretty much told them, we're going to give you this because we're trying to be kind and we want to work together. But we're also not going to get raked over the coals either. We'll just let the deal cancel.
Because this is something that it wasn't really your guys' fault.
We can close the deal and you can assume the tenant, or we can cancel escrow and you're left to go find a new house, and we'll just put it back on the market when we get the tenants out. So it was a lot of, hardball negotiating back and forth, but we were able to get it done.
Good,
the
good.
deal closed. And
So is there anything you do differently in your business now? I mean, again, the way you explained everything, it's exactly what I do. You try to prep the tenant, you try to work around their schedule, you try to do all of that stuff to make the tenant happy so they're not difficult. But is there anything that you do differently?
I wouldn't say there's anything in that situation that I would do differently. I did everything I could. I think the most important things, like you talked about, is really having those honest conversations with all parties. The buyers knew that there were tenants in place. The buyer's agent knew that there was tenants in place. My seller knew that of the potential problems that could occur with tenants, because we in the business, we experience this. We know that tenants don't always move out when they say they're going to. So just preparing everybody is an important factor here. Also, there's 2 real estate agents in this, right? And we have to work together. If our goal is to achieve the sale of the property, I could be the bulldog all day long, but if that's not in the best interest of getting the deal done, then what is that accomplishing? So, finding that fine line of being strong and knowing what how to best protect your client, but also, find ways to navigate, negotiate, and work together.
And I think what that does for you in the future too is, we all work in the same industry, and there's a small percentage of agents that do a lot of the business.
Yes.
And so, if you go through a deal with another agent where you're trying to work something out, what ends up happening is you're going to come across that agent again, and they're going to remember that, and they're going to remember that even if it gets difficult, we work together, we try to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
I have lots of those stories of, different things. And sometimes we're in a position where we have to bite the bullet and, do the right thing to take care of something. Like I have another quick story if we have time.
Go.
That just popped in my head. I represented the seller again in this situation. There's another agent here in town. She represented the buyers. And I took full responsibility because at the end of the day, I feel like even if it wasn't my fault, it's my fault, right? So the seller, bless her heart, she's a friend of mine. She packed up her house, loaded up everything, including the washer, dryer, and refrigerator, and put it in a truck and moved to Texas. And she was, on her way out of town. The buyer's agent never did a final walkthrough. They signed a final walkthrough and they sent it over to me saying that they accepted the house in the condition it was.
Gotcha.
But they didn't notice that there was no washer and dryer. So my seller had a moving company who loaded it all up. I did not. This is why I took the route I did is, I felt like that was a little bit of my responsibility to make sure that she remembered that the refrigerator, washer, and dryer didn't go. And I never had that.
I was going to say, so it was on the MLS that
it was on
they were leaving the refrigerator, washer, and dryer?
I think it was on the MLS that it was not being left, but it was on the contract that it was included.
Okay.
And then when they got there, it wasn't there, but it was after closing. They had already signed the final walkthrough saying they're accepting the property in the condition it was, even though it didn't have a fridge, washer, and dryer. At the end of the day, my client, she already had her appliances and her truck was already heading to Texas, so there wasn't really anything she could do. I felt that, my part in this was I didn't make it very clear to her or remind her at closing not to load up those things. And I didn't want her to, to be upset, right? I'm a relationship business through and through. So my clients are going to come back to me. My clients are going to send their friends and family to me. And if that means I have to take a loss. So at the end of the day, even though I could have went hardball with this agent, we could have fought and argued, well, you didn't do your walkthrough. You signed your walkthrough saying
you probably would have gotten away with it too.
Right. Yeah. But I felt to myself, how would I want to be treated in this situation? And what would I want my buyers to have? So I ended up
I'm very similar to you because I would say probably 50% of my transactions I'm contributing some type of commission or whatever it is because it's so important to me that all parties are happy and it feels like it was a win-win situation. Yeah. And so
I didn't want to put that burden on my seller who's already moving cross country. That's enough in and of itself. I didn't want this other agent to, feel like she had to be responsible for it, although, maybe she made some mistakes in the process
hopefully
as well.
She learns from that. And I was telling you earlier, why do I do the walkthrough one day or, on the day of closing is because of mistakes that have been made, doing it 3 days prior. So
I ate it, bought about, $3,500 in appliances and called it a day. But
and that's why you do 60 deals a year.
That's right.
So. All right, so one last question.
Okay.
This I just ask everybody. If there was a book that you would recommend new agents to read, what would it be?
Oh, man. I am actually reading a book right now that was recommended to me by Molly Hamrick over at Coldwell Banker.
I love Molly.
I love Molly.
Molly's been,
much.
I started at Coldwell Banker,
Okay.
and I was there for 12 years, so I know them very closely. I've traveled with them.
Okay.
They're amazing.
They are amazing. And this book has been so good. I'm not reading it. It's on Audible, but, and it is, then now I can't remember the name of it either, but it's a really cool one.
Okay.
It's something along the lines of, releasing the past and heading and changing your future. What is it? Let go of the past and or own your past and change your future.
You're gonna text me this book, and I'm gonna put it.
I could grab my phone right now, and we can.
There you go.
Hold
Let's
on.
do that.
I know I have it.
I love it.
All right, here we go. For all of you out there, this is a great book so far. I've really liked it. I'm a huge believer in taking accountability and responsibility for everything. And we've all have past, we all have trauma. But we can either let those things guide us and define us, or we can guide and define ourselves. And choices are everything. We talked about, we both came from different backgrounds, and I could have very easily took that fork in the road and ended up way over here, or consistently, challenging myself to do better and be better. It is, here we go, Own Your Past, Change Your Future by Dr. John Deloney.
Love it.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but anyways, it's a great book, and I highly recommend it so far.
Well, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Of course,
Let's
thanks
do
for
it
having
again.
me. I'll do it.